Welcome to the Jameson Files. I'm your host, Carrie Weber, and I am happy to be here with a new friend. And I'm excited to spend some time with him today and share him with the Jameson Files community, Andrew Johnston. Thank you so much for joining me, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, you messed up a little bit on that intro. It's best friend, I thought you said earlier,
Oh,
but like, look, hey, if we're just friends, because all of the people listening right now or watching it are just like they'll be offended if they really know how close we are. But like, whatever, it's fine.
I didn't want everybody to feel this this big amount of FOMO that they're not in our
Yeah.
little
Oh
two-person
no,
friend.
they should. How many hours are we going
Well,
on?
Uh,
Five and a
I
half.
think you said like 5.5 hours of best friendship.
A
So
friendship. Yep. 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 So yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is you'll see me kind of moving around, kind of pivoting. I might chatter my teeth a little bit because I'm so nervous about being a guest, but I'll try and have a good time anyway.
So for those of you that might not know Andrew, Andrew is nervous because he's usually on my side of the conversation in podcasts. Andrew is a co-founder of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast that's 10 years old this year. So
Yeah.
congratulations on being one of the OGs of podcasting in the dental space.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been an amazing ride. I mean, you think back, we did this in 2015 is when we started the podcast thing. And the funny thing is we're actually not even the OGs. There's actually a whole other subgroup of real OGs, Alan Mead being a part of that,
Yeah.
who really kind of just said, hey, here's the template for how to do a good podcast. Make it your own, but here's kind of like the bones of it and gear, software, all of that kind of stuff. And then it's just like buckle up, and it's been a ride ever since. It was never
Yeah.
supposed to be a cool thing to do, but now it's the cool thing to do, right?
Of course, I mean, now there's so many just trying to keep up with with the blueprint that you all have been following all along. But for those of you that are big podcast followers, you're likely no stranger to A Tale of Two Hygienists. And so, Andrew comes from the dental hygiene space, a dental hygienist yourself, registered dental hygienist, and
Mhm.
obviously veteran podcaster with a tremendous following. So curator of content of all things hygiene. But to add to that, you are the VP of Hygiene Operations for an emerging DSO in the southeastern United States. And and I just, we were talking before the interview, before we started recording, and you're in your first year in this position with this group,
Mhm.
and you are leading them toward a record year in hygiene
Yeah.
under your leadership in the operations of the hygiene division of the organization. And so congratulations to you. um,
Well, thank you.
but from all your years of practicing hygiene, of leading a hygiene department in the DSO space, but also as a curator of top relevant necessary information for those that are looking to grow either their hygiene departments or grow as hygienists. I'm excited to talk to you because I really want to pick your brain and give you a little bit of an open platform to be, instead of being the interviewer, to be the sharer of your insights. I always feel like those that are really great leaders and educators are students themselves,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
you're really
absolutely.
curating information of what works. And now, not only do you have 10 years of curation, but you're putting that what you've learned into practice, and it's working.
No.
So we vaguely talked about what we might talk about today, so I'm really just putting you in the hot seat because
I
I
love
don't know.
your format. Your format's the best way. It's like, "Hey, let's just start talking. Let's just see what's going
let's
on.
just
This
let's
is
just
gonna
see
work."
what happens.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Andrew did threaten that he may turn the tables and start interviewing me, so I'm going
I
to try my best to hold
I will
control.
d yeah, I'm so sorry if I do, listeners. I know, but it's just what we do.
It's
And,
going to be
hey,
great.
what's interesting? Like, I wanna, I think, kick a lot of this off. You and I have, like, a very similar, like, energy for trying to get teams to be excellent, right? And I
Yes.
think that, right at the get-go, I hope your listeners, like, are, I guess, audience. I keep saying listeners. Ours is all like, we don't do video. We are just like audio
Yeah.
only. But I hope your audience is okay with me being a part of a DSO. But I think a lot of the things that are applicable for DSO is applicable to private practice and everywhere else. And throughout my kind of career, full disclaimer, it's really been group practices.
Yeah.
And I like that model a lot because of the teams. So the success that we're having right now this year, banner year, I think today, actually, as we're recording this, will be the day that we catch up. What was the June 10th? we will have done more revenue in the hygiene department this year than all of last year.
Wow.
And so hopefully we're going to double that for the next year. We can't do that as hygienists alone, right? We need to have
Mm.
good leader doctors. We need to have great leader administrative team. We need to have
Mhm.
people helping with our schedule. We need to have all of like it takes this village really to have a successful department. But
Yeah.
I think when you distill all of the key elements of being successful, not one person has to do all the heavy lifting. I mean, obviously the hygienist has to be there, has to have the drive and the passion to be
Yes.
successful, to follow, kind of the outline that we've, kind of given to them to be successful. But man, we can't do it without anyone, with just by ourselves. We need the whole team to be on the same page. And that's really important, I think.
Yes. I probably sound like a broken record a lot of times on the episodes because you're right, Andrew. I do beat that drum because it takes a team. If a doctor feels like he or she is alone in meeting or exceeding goals or establishing their ideal vision for their practice, it's going to be a really hard journey.
Mhm,
And if the
mhm.
team members don't feel supported, if the team members aren't given the tools to be successful, if the team members don't have that kind of training or resources available to grow, then they're going to struggle as well. And
Yeah.
it all comes down to professional fulfillment. And the better I am in my role, the better the practice is, the happier everybody else is. It's just this kind of halo effect of impact that
Mhm.
starts to happen. But I mean, you really are in real time experiencing extraordinary success from some of the kind of probably core competencies or maybe some pillars for the hygiene department that you're
Mhm.
starting to establish. So I'd love to know, tell me, what are one or two of those things that you've started to implement or measure or instruct or lead in your department that is helping
Yeah.
you to see such extraordinary results?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really 2 things. You have to hire the right people,
Mm,
and we went through a period, and I am so grateful for the hygienists that were working for the group before, but there were some that just weren't a culture fit for what we were trying to bring in. So I work
mhm,
under a VP of operations. I report directly to her, and she has a vision, right? And this vision is very crystal clear. And it's get on board, or hey, there's plenty of opportunity right now in dentistry, right?
mhm,
So
right,
we love them, but they just weren't the right people for it. And so
right.
we were very selective on who we brought on board. We wanted someone that was going to be kind of a driver of change in their particular office, someone who
Mhm,
can really I mean as much as they can kind of just like, be self-driven, self-starters, those types of people who want to be excellent. And then the other thing too is like this isn't the blueprint of dentistry really isn't all that hard, right? So there's enough disease for us to make money. So it's about ethics, right? We have
mhm,
to see a disease and do the right diagnosis, right?
mm,
Then once we have the right diagnosis, we have the right treatment plan. You have to get the
mm,
treatment plan acceptance. You have to educate the patient. All of those things have to happen. And then the third component of that is your interventions after all the fact. This is
mm.
not new. This is not something Andrew made up. This is
Right.
dentistry 101. The,
Yes.
the difference is if you execute on all of those things, you're going to be just fine. I think where a lot of dental professionals get kind of hung up is on the one negative review out of 100, the one
Yes.
no to my treatment plan out of 100, and they don't look at the bigger picture. And so to that point is you do have to have some sort of a clinical dashboard. You do have to have some sort of a measurable KPI system in place, which we did
Mhm,
implement as well. And then just constant review of those things. Hey, your patient. So one of the easiest key metrics in hygiene is your perio percentage.
mhm,
So it's established. I mean, it's not Andrew's, numbers that he's pulling out, but it's about 47% of adults have periodontal disease. So we'll say
mhm.
50, half of the patients. We live in Florida. You don't think there's a little bit of an older population here, a bunch of retirees that have had some
Yeah.
sort of disease over their years. So we're going to see a little bit higher. So when we come in, I can't see 10% walkout codes that are only perio related and 90% prophies. That's ridiculous. And I understand the argument is like, well, they're on, retirement or pension or they don't have that much money. I understand that. I understand that.
It doesn't
But
change the fact that they have a disease that could cause,
mm-mm, mm-mm.
a lot of larger issues that we're turning a blind eye to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we can get into the whole supervised neglect and all those, rationales, the legalese of, diagnosing properly and treatment planning properly, but we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't want to do that. We shouldn't go down that road. We should just do it because it's the right thing to do, is to diagnose accurately. So you look at that percentage and you're like, man, you're at 30%. Like, let's look at your diagnostic skill set then. How are you coming up to only 30%? Is this a dentist is diagnosing, or are you co-diagnosing with your dentist? And before all of that, are you and the doctor having a conversation about what does disease look like? What numbers? What is the appearance? If you're not on the same page with your doc, then I mean, you're never gonna get to that
Oh.
50-ish percent, right? And so I think that's the lowest hanging fruit. You get to
Oh,
accurate diagnostics, man, you're gonna start knocking it out of the park in the hygiene department.
I mean, so many truth bombs. There's so much we could go circle back on that you just shared. I'm going to do my best to go back to all of it. Let's start with
Okay.
that last piece. The perio aspect of practices and the underdiagnosis
Mhm.
of, we're basically we're doing a disservice. And I went on a rant on your podcast a little bit about, ignoring, not really owning your role and
Yeah.
choosing the profession that you've chosen to be a part of, and not truly stepping up to the plate and representing that profession for the purpose that it's
Mhm.
supposed to serve.
Mhm.
And Andrew, I cannot tell you how many practices we go into, and the perio numbers are nothing. And so what's the deal? Like, what do you think that's all? Is that a confidence piece? I mean, I think it circles back to, I loved what you said about the right diagnosis, right treatment plan, and then the interventions after the fact.
Mhm.
To me, it falls into that, either we're not taking the time to appropriately diagnose and treatment plan, but also there's a dismal amount of confidence in having those kind of educational and treatment presentation type conversations with patients. Do you
Yeah.
agree with that, or where do you see the root cause of our issues in that, in those low percentages to be?
I mean, look, everything I say is going to be conjecture. I don't have any data or evidence to prove my thoughts and opinions on things, just my clinical years of experience. I don't understand why we are so separated from like the medical side of things. You go to
Mhm,
your doctor and they say, this is your disease, this is your treatment, and this is your
mhm.
interventions. And they don't give it a second thought. But all of a sudden, when we start doing that, we're like, oh, but here's some other options that are going to be lower
Isn't
quality. It's not
that the
actually going to
truth?
treat what you want to do, but we're going to try. Like, what are we doing here? Like, so there
Yeah.
has to be a shift. And the other thing too is like we have group think as far as like dentistry goes. Like whatever the three dentists over there are doing, well, these guys are also kind of have that same mentality of, we're gonna, hey, they want to do SRPs over there. Well, we'll do it for a pro fee or whatever. Like we're gonna like
Mhm,
just like we need to do better on that aspect.
mhm,
Not care about the emotional side of money. And I think
mhm,
that's so let me put a pin in that for a minute because I do want to come back to that. But the second
mhm.
part of this though is I do think that the dentist generally, and I'm not trying to throw all the dentists under the bus because I look, if you get offended by my words, maybe you're not doing it right. But if you're not offended, then you're probably doing it right. That's just the way it is. Here's the thing. I don't think that they're given enough education. I think that they just think that, oh, perio is perio. They don't focus on it the same way that we do. And
Mhm.
because of that, they're not looking for it the same way that we're looking for it. And that's fine. It doesn't have to. I'm not always looking for, well, actually, I do actually look for implant cases and stuff for my doctor to tee them up. But like
Right.
that's not I'm not really focused on restorative in the same way. So I might miss some sort of restorative component where they might miss some perio component. And that's okay. I'm not trying to like get everyone like all riled up and, oh, we hate Andrew now. But like
Nobody's
Andrew
gonna
at a
hate
tale of
you.
two hygienist.com. If you want to email me, go ahead. But so here's the thing though. It's like I think that just because that's not your focus doesn't mean that's not important. And I think that if we can just either allow our team members to allow it to be more important, or
Mhm,
let's just focus on it a little bit more. If you want this, so the way that we kind of look at it is if the hygienist is doing 3 times of their salary in production, like it's going to be kind of
mhm,
a healthy mix, right? I'm not opposed to it should be, like you should be doing $2,000 and $3,000 a day, and maybe you should
mhm,
be paying your hygienist 30% or 35% of that. There's a way to get people to do the right things, whether that it's financial motivation or whether it's just ethical, like let's do the right thing.
mhm.
And if you want your hygiene department to be successful and bring in a lot of money for you, focus on perio.
Yeah.
Don't ignore it.
Well, and to support your, ha- you know, what you're saying, and for those in the Jameson Files community that are Jameson clients or have been Jameson clients, this is not new information for you, because we teach, we try to encourage, just like we said at the start, Andrew, team approach
Mhm.
to the patient experience, to patient education, to treatment acceptance. And there is such an important aspect of treatment acceptance, restorative, perio, whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
that happens in the hygiene chair. We want 40 to 60% of restorative to come from hygiene, because
Yeah.
that's where your patients are flowing in the most. So when you have tremendous hygienists that not only understand their role in successful and effective hygiene care, the continuous care, but are
Mhm.
really helping to support those restorative needs, or the periodontal disease, or whatever the case may be. And to your point, Andrew, co-diagnosing with the doctors. And when we have tremendous doctor hygiene evaluations where the hygienist has already started having these conversations with the patient, partnering with the patients in their treatment and their ongoing care, and then that doctor comes in and we tee them up with photos, scans, and the start of a conversation that is appropriate for whatever the treatment is that the patient needs. That's a whole different practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's top tier practice. So if you're feeling stuck, if you are if you're not growing, if you're not thriving, if you feel very stuck, I would take a really long, hard look at your hygiene department and your relationship doctors with your hygienists, and how you all are partnering for the patient's health and that and their care.
And I
And
would
to your
say though,
point,
I would add to that though too, is like with that, not all hygienists are created equal, right? And not all hygienists are going to be the drivers of that. There might
right.
be an awkward time. If you love your hygienist anyways and they're still not performing the way that you might need to find a way to coach them up,
Yeah,
because we're
100%.
also not taught a lot of the stuff in hygiene school either. It comes
Neither
through
are the
working at
doctors.
DSOs. Right, right. So you definitely need like everyone needs a little bit more education. I think I did come across a little bit like a hygienist know everything and they don't, but you do need to probably help, move them along that pathway as well, to learn how to tee you up for certain
Mhm,
things, learn how to look for things, use the specific verbiage that you use for the patients for restorative. And so
mhm,
they can say the same verbiage so that the patient is like, oh, this feels familiar every time they hear it,
mhm,
similarly. So
mhm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not necessarily, what I don't want to be coming across as is saying that you should already know how to do all these things. If you do, great.
yeah, but
but
there's
but
so
there's
much to learn.
opportunities for growth. I mean, communication skills is a practice that we all, if you know, when you understand the power your effective communication has on you professionally and on your relationships professionally or with the patients, whatever, you will recognize very quickly that that's an ongoing study.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, we teach it and we study it and have to practice it. I mean, it's not, very few does that come naturally.
Mhm.
And it is to just like what you're experiencing straight on, Andrew, is okay, I'm studying these things. This keeps coming across as something that's going to have a positive impact. And now that you're in that leader seat of a hygiene department, you're applying that in reality. You're
Mhm.
actualizing that in the practices, and the results are speaking for themselves.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a huge component though that I haven't even touched on yet that I think is what, looking at it from like the owner doctor perspective. So the owners of the group are extremely generous, right? They are business people. They're,
mhm,
everyone's, money motivated, right?
mhm,
And we've set up, well, backtracking one more time real quick. So hygienists want to feel value, right? They want to
mhm,
feel included in decision making. They want to feel like that they are either emotionally or otherwise invested in the practice, right?
mhm,
One of the ways to do that is to get them nice instruments, to pay a little bit more for the products that are nicer, that smell better, that taste better, that do whatever better, that are less sticky, less messy, like whatever the
yeah,
hygienists like want, like be collaborative. But if you want to have nice things, you better produce, like you better, perform.
mhm,
And the owners have been phenomenal with this group where they're saying, okay, look, you can have these things, but get us here first.
mhm,
And then I can go back to the teams and say, hey, we have good stuff now. Do you want better stuff? Do you want, and
mhm,
and what is that better stuff? Like what company do you love? And let's try out a bunch of things. We've had companies send us, varnishes and
Mm,
instruments and things for us to try to see what's out there and what we want. And then the team feels like, hey, they're listening to my opinions.
yeah.
Like we're all a part of the team together.
Yes.
And the owners couldn't be happier because they're making money, right?
Yeah.
It's a win all around. And then because it's so rooted in, diagnostics, treatment, interventions, it's patient care centered,
Mhm.
everyone feels good about doing the right thing. And so it's
Yes.
like, this is how you win, you guys.
Yes.
This is not hard. And another thing, sorry, we're gonna keep talking about another thing and another thing. So the other thing too is like I understand the prophy mill model. Let's do
Mm,
15, 18 patients a day. I was showing you some of the metrics earlier, in which we can't show, unfortunately, for your audience. But one of those numbers I didn't actually even point out was we see about 5.5 patients a day on average.
mm,
And so part of that is you have to have the right makeup on your schedule. You can't have a prophy day, where it's just
mm,
all prophies all day long.
mhm,
But you also you need the time buffer. So if you have 8-hour shifts or whatever, there's
mhm,
no way that you're going to see 8 patients in a day if you have any sort of perio on that schedule. There's
mm,
just no way. And you're not going to have a productive financial schedule if you're doing profies all day long either.
mm,
Right. So that there has to be a healthy mix. And I know different groups have different philosophies of what that mix is.
mhm.
But just look at your perio percentages. If you're at 50%, and then 50% of your schedule, it should be perio. I mean, you should have,
Mhm.
if you're seeing 6 patients a day, four perio patients, 2 prophies. Like that seems
Yeah.
reasonable to me to still get that kind of production that you need.
That's a really great point. The number of patients that you're seeing is probably gonna in a typical hygiene column in a day is probably reflective of your perio percentages.
It really is. It has to
Um,
be. Yeah.
yeah. And, oh, you said something really great that I wanted to circle back on. Oh, you were talking about the investing in the hygienist, investing
Yeah.
in the resource, letting them be a part of exploring what great tools are out there or
Mhm.
products, and letting them be a part of that decision making. You actually really hit the nail on the head on studies on employee engagement. So
Mhm.
when you look at Gallup, or there are a couple of other companies that do a lot of surveys on employee engagement, not just in dentistry, obviously, but in the workforce, they talk about when they interview employees, what they see as those the nurturing steps that help to bring out engagement in them is the having an alignment of and knowledge and clarity of the vision and the mission and the values of the organization, but then having a place where the investment in development and professional development is taking place. So
Mhm.
those practices and people that are investing in their team and helping them to grow and develop, that's a real motivator, that there's opportunities for growth and development. And then also another one of the big ones is that there's that open space where they have the ability to provide feedback, to contribute ideas, and to be a part of solutions. So those are some of the big primary aspects that generate engagement in a company, in a business. And so
Mhm.
what you just said about giving the hygienists opportunity to explore the products and to give their input on what they want or need, obviously with the expectation that there's a return on that investment for the
Of course.
organization.
Of
But
course.
I just love that, because that hits the nail on the head in terms of, yes, money is a motivator, probably more so than ever. Cost of living is just extraordinary, and
Yeah.
we want
Yeah.
our employees to make a good living.
Mhm.
And that type of fulfillment, professional fulfillment, and creating that work culture where people enjoy being at work, they're seen, heard, and valued. They're looked at as more than just a cog in a wheel. That's really important to people, and I think it's becoming more and more important to younger generations. Would you agree?
I would. I mean, yeah, of course. I think I I don't know. We tend to hire people that are kind of in my generation still. Like the generation gap's not too wide yet for me. But I think the way I feel about things is I want that. And so maybe it is
Yeah.
my generation just maybe are living in it. But I think part of this though too, I think that you said it earlier, and I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but it was really beautifully said about being a learner, always wanting to
Mm,
learn. I've
mhm.
learned more by bringing it open to the group about what
Yes.
makes people tick than I ever would have done by saying, "This is what we're going to do." Because guess what? I have been in this industry a long time. I have sampled all these things my own self.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm coming from the chair my own self just 4 years ago. So it's like I know what kind of the best is. So I want them to have that. But guess what?
Mm.
They don't always want that. And now it's
Oh,
my opportunity to be like, "Oh, well, why don't you
oh,
want that?" And then
yeah,
maybe I can be wrong, and they can
yeah,
have a thing that I wouldn't want, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have to be that authoritarian that comes down and be like, but I
yeah.
also learned something. I learned about, what motivates people, human behavior, things that I might be able to not necessarily use right this minute, but I can bank it.
Mhm.
And then in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, I can use it again. So
Yeah.
I get the opportunity to learn by doing it that way too. So there's still something that, an owner, doctor, someone can get out of that, even if they're just going through the motions because Gallup says that's the right thing to do. There's still something that they could accidentally get by
Yeah.
doing it that way too.
Yeah, and I always, I love to nerd out on that kind of stuff. I understand. That's just kind of
Yeah.
me. I like to see like what's the pulse of, so I go look at all these things and you're right. It's good to know, but then what does that mean? Like how do you
Mhm.
translate that into your workspace, or how do you translate that? Okay, that all sounds good in theory. Let's, give them a place to grow, but I'm a 5-person practice. I have 5 people on my
Yeah.
team. There's not exactly a ladder to climb here.
Yeah.
And so you have to, think about what what right culture and healthy culture looks like in your practice, and be consistent in that,
Mhm.
so that if people so that that becomes the reputation that
Absolutely.
that you have. And I promise people in your community, dental professionals in your community, if you're consistent in developing a great work culture, you have a reputation out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna really develop something where it's not hard to recruit, it's not hard to retain, right? That's kind of our driving focus. We don't want
I
people
love
looking
that.
for other jobs, right? Well, and it goes to all the things that you talk about. It's culture is really everything. I think that hygienists are naturally educators. Like we want to have the time to educate from our
Mhm.
chair. So we're not going to cut down their appointments to 45 minutes. We're not going to do those ridiculous, standards and mandates that has happened in other group practices of yesteryear. I don't think it
Mhm.
happens in most places anymore, but it used to happen really crazy
Yeah.
things that they used to do. And so if we're just going to set ourselves up for success later and make our lives easier, we have to do it right. We have to establish the right type of culture. And I think we're doing it. We're not
Yeah.
there yet. We're not there yet, but we'll get there.
But that's the vision, and you're
That's the
working
vision.
working strategically to get closer to
Mhm.
that, and that's all that
Yep.
matters. Um, so that kind of what I want to circle. That makes me circle back to the first thing you said, is hiring the right people.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one, I can already hear the murmurs. I mean, I can hear what everybody's saying on the other side of this computer screen or their phone is like, oh, well, it's easy for you to say. We can't even find a person within 50 miles, a
Yeah.
hygienist to hire. I mean, that's been the narrative now for, oh my gosh, 3 years, maybe five really. I mean, if we can't, since the pandemic, I'd say it's just been the constant, you know, narrative in our space. And I'm actually going to have Rachel Wall on as a guest coming up really soon, because she did a great interview, and I'm like, I want you to do it again, and I want you to do it on my podcast.
That she's so good at this.
And I
Yeah.
was like, I
She's
love
great.
that interview that you
Yeah.
did about the hiring issue, and some solutions. And but to your point, man, that's hard, and I cannot let go of. I agree with you. We're really stuck in a rut here of people
Mhm.
simply hiring warm bodies out of desperation, and they're
Yeah.
not necessarily looking as if this person is a good fit for my practice philosophy and vision. And how are you dealing with that? I mean, you're not a solo practice looking for one hygienist. You're an emerging group
Mhm.
looking for multiple hygienists. And so I
Yeah.
liked what you said of, what did you say? the
I don't actually
Retain
remember
the
about
right
what I said.
people,
Oh, yeah,
recruit the
yeah.
right
We
people,
recruit the right
retain the right
people. Yeah, yeah.
recruit the right people, retain the right people. Help everybody get in the right headspace of how to get to that place.
And I'll be honest that it doesn't work everywhere, right? And that's just has to be the truth of it, and we have to accept it. We were actually at Chicago Midwinter, and I met this wonderful office, and they had their like long-term hygienist that kind of up and took more money somewhere else, and it was all about the money and this and that, and they couldn't compete at the
Hmm.
ridiculous prices that they were getting paid. That's gonna happen,
Hmm.
unfortunately, and it sounds like it's happening a little bit more and more. I also think that people are definitely relocating across state lines, which is gonna make it harder for certain areas that might be a
Yeah,
little bit more rural, and I know that we're trying to open up with compacts and things like we're not gonna get the compact
I
conversation
know. I
today,
was like, man,
but they're trying to make it
we're trying to
easier
nudge
for
into
people
that.
to move to different areas that are going to be the popular, the fun things. Like it's the, dental deserts are going to get worse and worse, in my opinion, because of it.
Oh,
But that's just, look, again, I don't have any studies or anything to prove that. That's just my opinion on kind of what I've seen. I live in Florida. Like, people have been flocking to Florida. I flocked to Florida. I've come from Washington State. I flocked to Florida. We have an abundance of qualified people down here in the Tampa area that are looking for a good place to work that's going to pay them well.
yeah.
And because we are on a production model for our hygienists, we don't do an hourly model. The world is their oyster. They can make it what they want it to be. We have the systems in place, and I have the data to show them, like, hey, this is what our hygienists are averaging. And if you do this much, this is what your hourly equivalent would be.
Mhm.
Most of our hygienists are making above $60 an hour at this rate if they were going to do, the hourly equivalent. And I think almost all of our hygienists at this point are going to be well over six figures.
Mm.
It's just, the template is there, you guys. It's not a magical template. And I think that if you give them opportunity to make the money that they want to support their family, right now, money is kind of the driver. Culture is always great. Culture is going to be what keeps them there, right? But opportunity is what's going to help you recruit people.
Mm.
And I think that you have to have an opportunity for them to make the money that they think that they're worth. And whether or not you agree if they're worth it or not doesn't matter. It's beside the point.
But here's the thing that can we touch on this for just a second? Maybe this is too long of
Always.
a maybe this is too
Whatever you
long of
want to
a
talk about, we'll talk.
but I like this. You're setting them up to have great opportunity, but you're also setting very clear expectations. I
Mhm,
mean, your numbers are reflecting that you have some expectations and structure in place that you expect your hygienists to meet, not in terms of
mhm.
necessarily like wearing them down to the bone or nothing unethical. I'm just saying you're training them, you're developing them. They must be engaged in that way of delivering excellence in their role. How are you establishing that as you're hiring these hygienists in your practice?
It's a long conversation kind
I
of from the
know.
get-go, right? And I tell them, like, "Hey, here's where we're at. Do you have this experience, this experience, this experience, this experience? What happens in this case? What happens in this case? How do you treat a patient there?" I need to know that their foundational knowledge is at least where I need it to be. I
Mm,
can train other things, but if they're, you know, for whatever reason, opposed to doing an iTero scan on new patients because, like, I don't have time or whatever,
mm,
then they're not going to be a good fit for us, right? So
mhm,
I try and give them, this is what the expectation is for your day to day. This is, we do talk about money and stuff like that, and how the compensation works, but this is what our clinical expectations are, especially for these categories of patients: your healthy
mhm,
patients, your gingivitis patients, your perio patients, etc. I think so. The owner doctor, she set it up really, really well at the very beginning. The whole let's scan our new patients was before us. It wasn't something we implemented when we came in. And she was very education focused. And so when I talk to these hygienists and trying to recruit them, I need to know that they can convey the right things to the patient with
mhm.
the right emotion and the right tact, right? So yeah, so those conversations get really long about trying
Yeah.
to establish. I try and give them every scenario, every possible case of where I've seen difficulty for hygienists. I think about myself. I go into the offices and I have, a checklist, and we have like a progress form that we have that says, hey, this is where you're at. This is where the standards are. Let's set a goal to get you up to there. It doesn't have to be
Love that.
what the goal is, or what the standard is. It's somewhere in the middle that's achievable. And then we focus on like two or three of those KPIs at a time to really, really motivate them to see that instant success on those areas.
I love that.
So I think about those things when I'm recruiting. I'm like, okay, where have I seen people kind of throw me curveballs that I'm gonna have to like overcome later on?
Mhm.
And then we talk about it. So it's a really, really long conversation. And then I think my boss isn't gonna love I say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I always encourage the hygienist to do a vibes check on the office. I say, come
Mm.
in. I don't need you to show me any, like, it's not a working interview or anything like that. Because sometimes when you go into an office, whether it's the smell of the office, whether it's the aesthetics, whether it's the layout, you just know right away. You're like, I'm home, right?
Yeah.
And I need them to feel that. I need them to feel like they could at least get there. And if it's too far off, like, oh, well, I got another office for you. Let's go check that one out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's
Man, I
probably a
love
longer
that. A
answer, but like
vibes
there's so
check.
many things.
I love
Yeah,
the
vibes check.
vibes
You
check.
got to. Yeah.
And, it really sounds like you are probably in the interview process, not only evaluating their skill set, but their coachability.
Yeah, for sure. I
Because
mean,
it sounds like, I mean, I love your checklist and all of those tools that you've established and, is really setting a standard of we're all about continuous development here. We're all about continuous feedback loops, and we're going to be constantly measuring our success against what right looks like here. And I mean, I love that, but that sounds like that's something, it may be something that you're simply naturally doing your own vibes check, so to speak. Um,
well, I'm also a little bit like, how can I make my life easier? Can I get someone I don't have to micromanage? Can you just know all
mhm,
these things before you come in so I don't have to,
mhm,
constantly measure you, constantly check? I mean, if they're already above all of those, those KPIs that we're looking at, I
mhm,
don't I don't meddle. Like let's just let clinicians clinician, right? Like
mhm,
don't just so you can show your authority or whatever.
mhm,
We don't need to do that. And so I do try and hire someone that is a little bit more like turnkey. Like
mhm.
if we can be a little bit strict on the interview process, then
Yeah,
it's gonna make my life so much easier and not have to coach them as much.
yeah,
But we do have some, some people that hit all of the right things, but maybe still need that coaching. And I love that opportunity too. Like
yeah.
so I mean, we have a couple of them. They're just like the sweetest people, but they've never had, this opportunity before presented to them.
Mhm.
And oh, sorry, we're going down so many rabbit holes, but like I also always try to have an anchor hygienist in every office, right? So
Yeah.
those ones would be like my lead hygienist. I want an anchor hygienist, and then we can have a baby new grad, or we can have someone's just like a
Mhm.
couple years out, and then that way like they get mentored the right way, whether it's between me, but it's also the other hygienists, but also the doctors and the front office, and everyone can kind of help form and mold this person into being really really successful. So I mean, sorry, there's so many things.
I
I didn't
know.
even remember that we do all these things, but apparently we do
You
do all these
do.
things.
It's a lot. I mean, this is a whole episode on best practices, right? No matter what season we're in the industry, hire
Mm,
slow, hire right doesn't go out of style.
yeah, yeah. No, you're right.
And we've all had that experience where you hire wrong, and
Mhm.
what's worse.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's important to know, kind of beginning with the end in mind in those interview conversations, and what you're filtering for in terms of where you need them to at least be able to start, and determine, can I work with this, can I build from this, are they coachable, and are we
Mhm.
able to partner together in our working relationship so that everybody thrives here. I'm really
Yeah,
like you, Andrea. I'd like to be able to, I don't want to. I don't want to micromanage. I don't want you to have to. Doctors don't want to micromanage.
the worst.
We do
Yeah.
enough leadership sessions with doctors that are on the cusp of just calling it quits because they just don't want to manage people.
Mhm.
And the best way to help relinquish the stress and burden of that is to create and develop a group of leaders in your practice that own their role,
Yeah.
and you can give them that freedom and authority to, how far into your practice have you delegated the ability to make decisions, or to work independently as a part
Mhm.
within the structure of a team. That's what all the doctors are looking for. It's like,
Yeah.
how much can I just simply do the dentistry and do the patient care, and everybody
Gosh,
else
that's
I
what
can
all of us
I
clinicians
can
want.
trust them to do the things.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, I love it. I think you're doing great things. I'm trying to talk Andrew into being more of a speaker, and he doesn't want to.
Oh,
So I guess I'll
that's
just
not
keep
my
having you
no.
on as a guest on the Jameson Files.
Hey, you made this
Um,
really easy, and yeah, I know you had Kevin Henry on, and shoot, if he could do it, I could do it, right? That's what I said. But this was I know I'm still like fidgety, nervous, but you made this so easy. So thank you for this.
Yeah, well, no, thank you. So many great insights, and truly, truly, for those of you that love listening to podcasts, and love to learn in that way, I encourage you to go seek out A Tale of Two Hygienists. 10 years of content in there, people. So there's a lot there, and Andrew, you're just the best. So
You're the best.
thanks for being my new best friend. Now we're at like 6 hours.
I know, right? That was good. That was really good.
6
40
hours.
minutes this one. You told me 25 minutes.
I'm
So it's
sorry.
okay.
We just had
We
so
had
much
a great
to
time.
say.
Good.
So
I
much,
I
so
know
much
your
to
audience is
say.
gonna have a good time with it. It'll
Yeah,
be
it's gonna
fun.
be a great time. So, and to the audience, thanks to all of you for joining us, and be well, and we'll see you next time.